Canada's military is in, quote, desperate need of investment. That's according to U.S. House Intelligence Committee Chair Mike Turner. He made those comments as delegates are gathering in Montreal for the last day of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly meeting.
Every day that someone in the alliance does not reach that 2%, it has direct consequences to our ability as an alliance to defend ourselves against authoritarianism.
He's talking about Canada. Turner told CTV News chief political correspondent Vash Kapelos that Canada's military is in desperate need of immediate investment and that they already are past due, his words, on their promise. For more, we're joined this morning by Robert Baines, President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada. He attended the meetings in Montreal. Good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
So Canada does not plan to meet NATO's 2% of GDP on defense spending until 2032. That's 8 years from now. In comparison, 23 of NATO's 32 member countries are going to meet their targets this year. So how has Canada addressed these concerns over our defense spending or lack of spending this past weekend?
Well, that's not what this weekend was about expressly, but it definitely was a topic of discussion. NATO is based on the idea of 32 nations now, that's how many members NATO has, all defending one another. The idea is an attack upon one is an attack upon all. That means that everybody has to be prepared to defend themselves and each other. It's one of the main ideas that came out of the Second World War. That's what we learned from all the death and destruction of that terrible conflict. So the fact that a country, Canada and several others, 8 other NATO members, are not at 2% is a challenge because that is what we have basically dedicated ourselves to do since 2014. So the fact that we are not at that level is a great challenge, and it's been many governments throughout our history in the past 2 and 3 decades that have not reached 2%. And so at the moment, most of the defense experts and military experts that I work with are concerned because there's no easy way to get to 2%. You can't just snap your fingers and suddenly get to that number. There's a tremendous amount of back research and work that needs to be done to get us to spending that much. And that's also spending on our own equipment, on our own soldiers and airframes. So it's a very great challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge, but it's also a real concern when we look at what's happening geopolitically in the next 8 years. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte this weekend. Trump, we know, is far more skeptical of NATO than the current administration. So how will his return to the White House affect America's place in this alliance, as well as countries like Canada? And we know in the past that at the time, President Trump said, if people don't start meeting their targets, he's tired of America carrying the lion's share.
Yeah, I mean, what he says, the content of what he says is perfectly reasonable. The challenge is the way that he says it. Certainly the warnings, essentially, that he has been giving are making people how shall we say, adjust our plans. I suspect that there are a lot of discussions. There will actually be a few conferences this week on just how to reach 2%, and if we can do it with greater speed than 2032. But the challenge is that NATO is all about unity. And when you start really pushing one another and saying that we're not going to defend a country that's not spending 2%, that does bring a bit of a split in the alliance. So it's definitely what is needed. 2% is definitely needed, and it's what we said we would do. But saying that you will no longer protect someone because of that is a great challenge, because it's not like we're paying the money to the United States. We're paying it to our own military and building our own military with that money.
I'm curious to get your reaction to Turner's comments from about a week ago, where he said Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, not Donald Trump, is a threat to the stability and success of NATO, talking about us missing our targets. What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, any country that is not putting their money to the support of what's called the international rules-based order is, not pulling their weight. And that's exactly what we said we would do at the end of the Second World War to make a more stable and peaceful world. NATO is an amazing tool, so not supporting it as we should is a danger. Certainly, it's a danger to everyone. The challenge is that is our main foreign policy goal. Global Affairs Canada lists support of the rules-based international order as our #1 foreign policy goal. So at the moment, we are not doing what we said we would do, which is the whole point of multilateralism.
I want to thank you for joining us this morning after a very busy weekend. Robert Baines, President and CEO of the NATO Association of Canada. Good to have you in this conversation.
Thank you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.